All right, DJ O.
What up, everybody? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everybody, to Dope People, our weekly series. If you were here last week, we said we needed some music to bring the vibes like we do in real life. So we went and got our in real life DJ O to start it out for us. Thanks again, bro.
My pleasure.
I'm Jacoby Holland, and of course, I have my partner with me as always, Lulu Sway. What's up, Lulu? How you doing?
Hello, everyone. Super excited for today.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we do these every week. We just we interact with people we've met across our cannabis journey, people we think are experts in particular areas of the cannabis world. And we have an exciting one today. I know it's a good friend of Lulu, so I'll let you do the introduction today.
So yeah, thank you, Charlotte, for joining us today. Big fan, girl, and friend. I would say Charlotte is a Renaissance woman, skincare maven. We met a couple of years ago doing a fundraiser, and you've probably read many of her articles in Marie Claire, in Glossamer, in Bon Appetit, and along the way I've seen her launch a new media company called Nice Paper, and she's recently also launched a new skincare line called Dieux. So without further ado, I would love to introduce everyone to the magnificent Charlotte, and she's gonna break some stuff down for us about the beauty industry.
Hi, everyone. Lou, thank you so much for that introduction. I'm just gonna be taking you everywhere. So today we're gonna be talking about, yes, the skincare industry, yes, CBD and cannabis, but just kind of taking it from a more of a bird's eye view so that you understand basically how you're being marketed to, because there's a lot of misinformation in the space, and it's because misinformation and fear is incredibly, profitable. We all saw what happened at toilet paper sales. Fear is an incredible motivator. So I'm just gonna share my screen, and we're gonna go through a little presentation I made. I promise it's not as boring as that sounds. So let me just share this screen. So does everybody see that? Yes, we're good. Okay, wonderful. So the myth that is perpetuated quite a bit by quite a few industries is that the FDA doesn't regulate skincare. I'm just gonna move this over to the side because I'm realizing you guys might not be able to see everything. And that natural is always gonna be safer when it comes to ingredients and when it comes to kind of the future of the industry, right? So we should be moving towards natural products. And the reality is that the FDA actually does regulate skincare. It's more of a nuance. I'm not saying that the FDA is doing a great job, and we'll go through that, but at the end of the day, they are looking at what's happening in skincare. And another important point is that, natural does not equal safe or sustainable. I don't know, we're getting some chat, so you tell me if you guys can't see the screen or something. So currently the way that the FDA looks at cosmetics is that basically it's this nuance where they're not approved, right? Like I can just launch a product tomorrow, but they are regulated. What the nuance there is that a consumer actually needs to report a product to the FDA as being problematic or creating an adverse reaction or just flat out lying. If you look at class action lawsuits, there are actually tons against cosmetic companies for making false claims about ingredients, right? So it could be ranging from hyaluronic acid and the claim that it's super hydrating. It's actually not necessarily entirely accurate, or to plant stem cells, which is, completely unproven. Might work, but we don't really know. Where we're going in terms of regulation is we are looking at moving more towards the EU model, which would require more testing. It will require more ingredient safety and transparency, but it's still not taking care of kind of this quintessential problem in US skincare industry, which is the marketing claims, which are mostly overshot, not really based in science, and are basically trying to straddle this line of what's considered a drug versus what's considered a cosmetic, right? These cosmetic companies want to say that their claims are proven, and in doing so, they actually veer into drug territory. And the example I have right here is an FDA warning letter to Tata Harper. They've gotten a few from what I could see on the FDA website. And it was just for basically saying that lavender has any benefits, which really it's aromatherapy. That's really what you're legally allowed to do with anything that's an aroma, is you're allowed to make claims around the scent. And that is it, because that is all that we have that is proven, which is an interesting through line, which we'll talk about in the cannabis industry, which is the claims around terpenes and what is proven versus what is not. Again, doesn't mean it's not true. It just means that you're making a claim that no one really knows is accurate or not. So really, to me, what I've seen just kind of generally in the industry, and both in CBD and in cosmetics, but also in wellness, like you can look at this extrapolated to a lot of industries in the US, is that the marketing claims are just as dangerous as the ingredients, right? So for example, formaldehyde, obviously it is bad and we should not have that in ingredients. And there are very few like products in the US that you're gonna find that are like marketing formaldehyde as something that's good. But the flip side of that is that a lot of companies have demonized parabens. Now, there are definitely certain kinds of parabens, particularly long chain ones, that are deemed problematic, and they are banned in skincare in the EU. But the EU also allows for plenty of other kinds of parabens, and actually say that they are potentially safer than some of the alternative preservatives, which you're now starting to see in really high concentrations in the US. So again, it's this idea of using that misinformation to sell a product, right? We are paraben free, therefore making the assumption that everything that doesn't have parabens is safe and the things that do have parabens are bad, but it's not really accurate. And that misinformation isn't exactly empowering. You compound this with the fact that at the FDA, it's been continually underfunded year after year after year. And with Instagram and with direct-to-consumer selling models, more and more companies are launching. They are less equipped to issue letters like this. I'm sure anybody in the CBD industry is very familiar with all the FDA letters that are sent to CBD companies making outrageous claims. Now, multiply that by the number of cosmetic companies we have, and the ingestible companies and the supplement companies, and you start looking at thousands upon thousands of brands where you have like a department of 10 people. Like, good luck, like God bless them, it's hard. And just if anyone was wondering, Tata did fix all the claims on their packaging. So in case you were worried. I like certain products from that brand. It's just, this was, I thought, a very interesting thing I found on the internet. So in Europe, something that's really interesting is that clean beauty is actually now becoming something that's becoming highly regulated. You are not allowed to say non-toxic. You are not allowed to say chemical-free, because chemical-free is a lie. Everything is a chemical. We are made of chemicals. It would be bad if we were chemical-free. We would die. And then lastly, the idea of paraben-free, et cetera, like the whole through line with the EU is that you're basically lying to consumers. So you're starting to see this kind of filter in to the CBD world and to the cannabis world, where we're starting to get really nebulous with claims and not really following science, but more so following those marketing dollars and what's gonna actually sell the most, rather than being accurate or having any regulation, because at the end of the day, the FDA doesn't look at CBD. They won't label it a supplement. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with the Proxmire Amendment, but basically supplements are actually one of the least regulated industries in the US. But when you look at kind of how the FDA wants to approach it, right now they're saying it is okay in cosmetics, but again, no testing has been done, so you can't actually make any claims on the product. So if you guys were curious, let's talk about the differentiation between what a cosmetic is and what a drug is, because this is where the FDA starts really stepping in. So cosmetics is beautification, right? It's pretty simple. It's like you're basically going to be altering your appearance, right? So you can say things like glowy or dewy and things like that. It's pretty, simple in terms of the claim. But when you start getting into the drug category, that's when you're talking about acne, right? So how many CBD brands have we seen that claim to cure acne based off of a study done on rats? Many. Dermatitis, that includes psoriasis and rosacea. Technically, those are not allowed. You are not allowed to make drug claims. If you make those, the FDA can send you a warning letter and you have to actually change all your packaging. You can't make comments about dandruff. We're starting to see CBD more and more in hair care products. And then two things that a lot of people don't think about, but sunscreen is a drug and hand sanitizer is a drug. So all of these CBD hand sanitizers just makes my mind explode because it's not OTC certified. The FDA doesn't recognize it. And because with hand sanitizers, microbial loads, which is bacteria, are so important to stability, right? So if you have too much bacteria in your product, the ethanol is gonna kill that, or the isopropyl alcohol. So what's gonna happen is that you're gonna actually have a lower alcohol count if you don't do the proper stability. So in the age of COVID, it's kind of scary seeing all these CBD hand sanitizers because I'm like, okay, well, I know you didn't you can't OTC certify that because the FDA doesn't recognize it. How do you know that that's actually active? So it's a really interesting dichotomy in seeing, you know, how people are trying to add differentiation to their products, right? So it's not even about markup, but it's like my product is different because it has CBD, whereas we don't have really much research on why that's even a good thing in your product other than anecdotal. So you know something is OTC when it looks like this. So if you see an ingredient like this, like you turn around your product and it says drug facts, then you know that that is actually a claim that you can make. It's been proven. So how this relates to the CBD industry is that I'm sure all of us have seen so many pain creams. Legally, you are not allowed to make a single claim about CBD and pain. What companies will do is that they will add menthol and camphor in order to make the claims about CBD and pain. This does not mean that CBD doesn't work for pain. I know a ton of people that have said that it works. It's more that we don't know the dose. We don't know how to get it actually into your skin and like actually get to like that inflammation, or basically what kinds of pain that it's targeting, right? It appears to be inflammation, right? Not like nerve damage. And at the end of the day, you're seeing a lot of brands take from pages of beauty books in order to be able to market and sell you products without really understanding dose. So one of my companies do, which Lulu alluded to, we're actually conducting clinical studies on dosage for beauty, right? So we're looking at redness and inflammation. And what we found was that there is that bell curve response. So for those that aren't familiar with CBD and cannabinoids and our endocannabinoid system, there are some studies from Brazil that show that if you take too much CBD internally, it's just not gonna work. If you take too little CBD, it's also not gonna work. There's a Goldilocks level where it's like the just right level. And we're seeing the same pattern in skincare. So this doesn't mean that that like 2,000 milligram face oil that cost you $200 doesn't work, because we have no idea if it's oil that's the best delivery method, encapsulation methods. There's like talk about nano emulsions, all that stuff. It's just more that everybody is stabbing in the dark right now, and they are charging you based off of that. To me, that doesn't feel right. I would like to know what I'm buying. And it also raises questions to full spectrum. So full spectrum, everyone's like, you must look for full spectrum. And I thought this too when I first started in the industry. But then as I started talking to chemists more, particularly our chemist who's a cosmetic chemist and dermatologists, you want accuracy when you're talking about your face. Because even a change in terpene level, because right, full spectrum is the whole plant. For those that aren't familiar with CBD, there is an isolate, which is like a vitamin C pack, right? So it's just a single compound CBD. There's broad spectrum, which is where you take the THC out. Sometimes you take out other things. And then there's isolates, which are very high in purity. So when you're looking at full spectrum in skincare, that means that you have a bunch of fragrance that you don't know about, or the concentration. It means that you have other cannabinoids, which might impact the efficacy of the product. So not sure if people are familiar with Thomas Biro, but he's basically a researcher out of Hungary. And he's actually doing minor cannabinoid studies in collaboration. The first one wasn't, but the second one was with GW Pharmaceuticals, and they're the people that own Epidiolex. I mean, it's all connected, let's be real. But they're doing these minor cannabinoid studies because it is promising for certain conditions. But what they found is that CBG potentially up-regulates oil, and that CBC down-regulates oil. Now, if I have acne, the last thing I want is more oil on my face. If I have dry skin, the last thing I want is to have less oil on my face. So full spectrum actually might not really mean much when it comes to skincare, because you want to know how these receptors are signaling your skin. And it's basically a cocktail of random ingredients, and we don't know if they work or not. Now, again, it's all dependent on dose, right? So it might be that these full spectrum products, their minor cannabinoids are in such low doses that they actually don't matter, right? They don't impact your skin. But then why are brands upcharging you on that, right? So it's a much more nuanced conversation, and it really has kind of opened up my eyes to kind of how brands are approaching this conversation, selling to consumers. And then sometimes I've seen up to 20x markups in the CBD skincare luxury space. A 20x markup is enormous. So I mean, not my money, spend it on whatever you want, but it's interesting. So we kind of talked about how this relates back to CBD, and you guys are going to be getting this deck, so you guys can read this afterwards. But I think we should just kind of jump into more layering your products, then we can just kind of open it up to questions. Awesome. So one thing that I see over and over again are brands telling you to layer products based off of more marketing than basically what's best for your skin. Now, at the end of the day, you need to do whatever is best for you. If you find that, layering Vaseline on your face on dry skin is what you like and your skin thrives on it, do it. I'm not going to correct you on that. But when we're talking about how to layer skincare in terms of what makes the most sense, you always start with a cleanser, right? Not in the morning, but at night, you can start with a cleanser, double cleanse if it's an oil, because if you have oil on your face, it's going to repel water. And there are important ingredients like humectants, like thinking about like glycerin or panthenol, things like that, that bring water close to the skin. So you want to start with serums that are water and oil emulsion bases. Then from there, you can go into something that's called emollients. Emollients soften and condition the skin. So those are going to make it feel really nice, fill in those gaps, reduce transepidermal water loss, and over time, it's actually going to repair your skin. So you're going to look for creams that are formulated with those emollients and humectants, and then you can look for oils that are emollients. So hemp seed oil would be a great brand, like a great product, right? So hemp seed oil, super cheap, really great for your skin. And then lastly, you're looking at occlusives. So you're talking about like waxes, like that's when you're talking about like shea butter. People do put petroleum on their face. I don't know if it's the best idea for everybody, especially if you're acne prone. But yeah, this is just kind of like a beginner guide. And that's my little roundup.
Awesome.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
All right, because I can't even read what those words mean, to be honest. So I'm going to need that deck later.
Wonderful. All right. Have we stopped sharing?
I
can open up all of my inappropriate messages. Great.
Thank you, Charlotte. That was awesome. And just a reminder for people that are paying attention, if you have a question, please put them in the Q&A part, and Lulu and I will ask them out loud.
So I do have a question for you, Charlotte. There's a lot of confusion reading labels in a lot of beauty brands. Are there some ones that you personally like that you're maybe using right now?
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's always kind of going to be this Venn diagram of your budget and your efficacy, right? So for me, The Ordinary is one of those brands where it's like everyone loves it. And it's like, how can you hate a serum that is $5? I don't, right? It's one of those things where you can participate in trends at a very low cost. For me, I am 33 and trying to put off, any like Botox or fillers or anything like that, just because they mildly terrify me, which is, I know, irrational, but it is that's what fears are. So for me, I look for high efficacy in products. And so when I'm looking at brands like The Ordinary, I'm like, okay, well, it's not the exact formulation I want. It's not stabilized the way I want it to be. And I don't love that particular active in a dropper bottle. So for me, I only buy 1 or 2 products from The Ordinary, but overall, I think it's a fantastic brand. Another brand that I love is Chemist Confessions. It is created by a team of chemists who used to work on clinical brands. So love that brand as well. It's really price transparent. What you always find is that like when scientists or like chemists make these cosmetic products, they tend to be really fair on the pricing. It's more like when marketers enter the room, like enter the chat, and they're like, I could totally charge $200 for this fountain of youth, right? So whenever I see a cream for $200, I'm like, no, I just would never spend $200 on a cream. Like I would go get Botox at that. Well, I mean, I know Botox is more expensive, but it's just like crazy to me that people spend $200 on a cream. And I'm like, that's placebo making you think it's better than just like, one of the many creams you can get.
$5 is probably too cheap.
Well,
right?
it's actually, it makes sense when you look at how they're formulating, right? So they're typically just buying directly from the supplier and putting it into a bottle. So they're basically white labeling formulas. There's no custom formulation. So any brand could make that. Like it costs pennies to make. But for me, there are good formulations where I want more than just like that one ingredient, and then I have to layer another ingredient. So sometimes you're spending tons of money. And then also the packaging leads to destabilization. For me, the one place where The Ordinary is king is in acids, because acids are incredibly easy to stabilize. They are not super complex, You just need percentages to be right. So their AHA, BHA, the 30% AHA with 2% BHA, I have a hard time finding a product that beats that because it's $8. And that's what most acids, for the most case, should cost around that. Chemist Confessions adds a bit more, I would say, nuance to the formula. So it's less likely to burn your face off. It's, a bit more elegant of a formula. You're going to see more brightening effects. And that's why you'll pay the upcharge for it. But when I'm seeing basically an AHA, BHA cleanser, and for those who don't know, because I just jumped into that acronym terminology, you were like, what are you talking about? Alpha hydroxy acids, they eat away at your skin. Your little dead skin, it makes you look all dewy, and it also can bring moisture to the skin. It can actually stimulate hyaluronic acid production, which is moisture in your skin, plumps it, and that's lactic acid that will do that. And then there's salicylic acid. So that's if you have blackheads, like acne, they'll recommend that a lot, but salicylic acid eats oil, right? So when you're looking at acids, they actually are pretty easy to formulate. So whenever I see an acid that's like $300 for like an ounce, I'm like, oh wow, that's a smart marketer. Like that person is literally rich. Like, should I become friends with them so I can go on their yacht? Because they're making like a 40x markup. It's insane.
But I mean, like, as somebody that doesn't know all of these terms as well, are all of those things going to be on the package? And should I just research those?
The thing is that consumers are becoming incredibly smart, and you have to be increasingly careful. What I will say is that brands like The Ordinary and The Inky have made everybody think that products should be cheap. And as a formulator, some of our raw materials, like sometimes our raw material cost is $14 to then formulate that, stabilize it, find packaging, warehouse that, and ship it to you. I'm sorry, it's not going to be a $5 product. And so that's kind of a reality. Like there is a spectrum of products. With Dieux, we are going to be price transparent. We really want to show people what a clinical study costs, what our formulations cost, and just to kind of show clinical skincare, does it need to be $300? No, I think most skincare could be under $100 and still maintain pretty solid margins. You're talking about, to maintain a company, you need around 50 to 60% margins post-fulfillment, right? You need to be looking at those kinds of numbers, because we all saw what happened to the restaurant industry. The second there was a speed bump, they all literally had to shut down. So you need to, as a business, have proper margins. But at the end of the day, we think that consumers need to understand a little bit more about how supply chains are working. But also, if you're investing in sustainable packaging, right? That's like, there's so many elements in terms of like how skincare impacts the larger industry, because so many people participate in the industry, that it's a lot to learn. And I'm sure it sounds super overwhelming, but that's why we're creating a skincare brand that's basically here to educate you on that, because we want you to start asking questions, not just of skincare, but of every industry that's you're participating in. Because when you're living in America, it's like there's so many parallels, and you're seeing that the American way of creating products is now starting to mushroom out into other countries. So I'm half French, and I'm seeing the same trends happening there. And it is wild how much ideas spread so quickly in globalization.
Charlotte, we're going to answer, or have you answer, a couple of questions that are coming in from our attendees. So Sherilyn asked, how do we read the ingredient labels to know about efficacy?
Right, so ingredient lists, what they're going to go from is highest to lowest concentration. That is the law. The law that a lot of people don't talk to you about is that after 1%, a brand can put whatever they want in whatever order. So I know Lulu's face, her eyebrow just went up. Yeah, and so that's like a little asterisk that nobody tells you about. A brand, if they are honest, first off, you can ask them for the percentages, right? Legally, they should be telling you this. So for example, retinol. You cannot buy a retinol product at more than 1%. And for those who don't know what retinol is, it is a vitamin A. It's one of the only products that will reverse aging. It literally speeds up cell turnover. It thins your stratum corneum, which is your first layer over time, but it thickens the epidermis. So you always wear sunscreen with it and you take breaks. But if a brand is using it at 1%, you can make a complex, which means that you're mixing it with all these other ingredients. Like there are lots of ways for brands to lie, right? So We all know of one brand that talks about a broth of ingredients. It's really hard to read ingredient lists, and you're really gonna have to talk to the company. And if you're looking for a specific active ingredient, they should be listing clearly on the bottle what that active percent is. If they are not, it doesn't mean it's not gonna work. It just means it's a little bit sketchy, because brands like to brag when they spend money. I know I like to brag when I spend money. So if they're not listing it, it's a little bit sketchy. But just also remember that after a certain point, things can be out of order. So the idea that you can just read the ingredient list and that's going to be the exact ordering, it's not exactly the case. Like for example, essential oils under 0.05%, they're pretty safe in terms of fragrance. I can't use them because I'm very sensitive to fragrance, but most people can use them. But what brands will do is that they'll put the fragrance lower on that ingredient list to make it look like it's a lower concentration when it might actually be higher. So be careful. I don't have a good answer. And that's why we're launching, is because we're trying to hold the industry accountable by creating a brand that's holding itself accountable.
So Amanda wanted to know, what are some of your favorite skincare products? You mentioned The Ordinary and some of the chemical-based ones.
I'm actually drinking some beauty right now. I think that edible beauty is like very underrated, and also just drinking water is underrated. Like, your skincare is not going to be good if you don't drink water. Like, it's free, so let's all do it. I said Chemist Confessions. I said The Ordinary. I do love Skin Medica and SkinCeuticals. Not all their formulations are my favorite, but I think that there is, our chemist is from SkinCeuticals, and the rigor in which she approached CBD formulation it took us 2 years to formulate. That's how long it took to meet her standards. So I respect those brands, even though I don't have the budget to be buying them. Very lucky that Skin Medica will sometimes send me products, but they're very expensive, but they do work. So I also like those two as well. And then I'm trying to think of another price conscious brand, because I always like high-low. But Maylove is a brand that not a lot of people are aware of. But I think that they have pretty decent formulations for the price. Not the same efficacy in my opinion, but definitely, like, again, I'm not going to get mad at a formula. It's like under 30 bucks. Like, I'm not a monster. I'm like, that's great. Like, under $30 and it's pretty efficacious. Like, thumbs up.
Cool. We have one anonymous attendee asking, how can consumers better educate themselves in terms of natural, organic, GMO? For example, there's a huge anti-GMO movement, but citric acid is manufactured by GMO black mold. So how do people become
yeah, I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, I think and this is my perspective, do you go with the 99% of scientists that say that something is safe, or do you go with the 1% of scientists that say that something is not safe? I like to go with the 99%. It's how I feel about vaccinations. It's how I feel about climate change. It's how I feel about a lot of things. I would say look at where the information you're getting is coming from. So if it's not from a doctor, and if it's not from a scientist, and if it's from a blog or an environmental website that issues certifications for their green label for money, I would be really conscious of that. Citric acid is a direct result of parabens. Because parabens have been effectively banned by the clean beauty mania, I don't know how else, like paranoia propaganda, citric acid is a preservative. So this is what I was talking about earlier, where one thing which sounds good on the level, right, safety, has now triggered citric acid being overused in products as a preservative. Now, citric acid is highly irritating to me. It will burn my face. And I learned this from trying a conductive gel that was way too high in citric acid, and I literally ripped off a solid layer of my skin. So what I would say is that look at where that information is coming from. Talk to farmers, talk to scientists, talk to doctors. Don't talk as much, or don't look for, backup sources for your information, where it's coming from. Because for me, I'm not worried about GMO. I'm not worried about, I think for me, my bigger issue with natural is that it's actually detrimental to the environment to keep pulling from nature. CBD is the rare crop where it actually pulls a ton of carbon out of the air and back into the soil. I don't want to see rose in my products. I don't want to see lavender in my products, not because I don't love the smell, but because they're actually very high carbon crops. We don't need them. They're just for fragrance. So for me, I would actually push back and say, I don't think that nature is the answer. I don't think taking from nature is the answer. I think working with science to figure out how we can optimize yields while not polluting systems is how we do it. And like, I'd like to see more forests personally, potentially even in New York. There are not enough forests in this city. It's not great in my neighborhood. So just putting that out there.
What are some ingredients we should look for then? Like some of the things that you mentioned, hyaluronic acid, retinol.
Yeah. It completely depends on what your goal is. For hyperpigmentation, there is no hint that's been studied than vitamin C. However, vitamin C can be highly irritating. So you can look at or tranexamic acid, things like that, or even acids, right? The AHAs and BHAs that now Jacoby is an expert on. So you can look for those kinds of ingredients for hyperpigmentation. But if you're looking for aging, well, making sure that your moisture barrier is intact. So oils are actually quite important to maintaining the softness of your conditioning it. A better way to say is like the way you would condition leather. Like dry leather is not cute and a dry face is not cute. So you will exacerbate certain qualities that you may not like. But then also hydration. So I drink beauty. I don't really recommend it if you're under 30 because like enjoy it, like don't stress, just wear SPF. But that's another one you should use, SPF. Like when I hear about people that use all these anti-aging treatments, but then say they don't wear sunscreen because they don't like the texture or because of chemicals, I'm like it actually gives me anxiety. So sunscreen is a really important one. I know it's like, I sound like a mom right now. God bless moms though. It's like, what, like Mother's Day soon? Yes, listen to your mom. She probably is gonna tell you to wear sunscreen. But other good ingredients, ceramides. I know I mispronounce that word all the time, but it's basically a lipid. They're found in your skin. It basically repairs those cracks, so it allows your water to stay in. So you know how water evaporates? If you have no oil on your face, the water in your skin is just gonna, poof, it's gonna go away. So locking that in, and then lastly, I love glycerin. I think it's like one of those weird demonized ingredients, but it's like so legit, so gentle. Like, you know, people will find some irritation to any ingredient, but glycerin is pretty much like, we have a couple of derms that we work with and like they all love glycerin. And I like to listen to a derm because they've seen a lot of skin, seen a lot of it.
Can you talk a little bit about your daytime and your nighttime routine?
Yes. So I'm pretty simple. So in the morning, I do not wash my face. I have dry, dehydrated skin. I'm not washing my face. I just splash it with water. I then do microcurrent. So I use like a new face. You can also use the Zip. That's like another one that's really big. And then after I go in with a brightening serum, right now I'm testing Dieux's serum. It's going to be a brightening / cannabinoid product. We did our first clinical studies on the cannabinoids. So now we're doing the clinical study on the formulation as a whole because we didn't know what dose to use. So now we figured out what dose we can go in with other ingredients. And then after that, I'll just use a cream, like a simple moisturizing cream. I'll use, I get like a lot of face rashes, I know, super glamorous. So I'm using CeraVe right now, but I like something a little bit more, with more ceramides, a little bit more complex. Again, CeraVe is a great brand. It's just like, it's a very basic brand. It has 3 ceramides. I like 5 to 7 ceramides. And the reason why you want that range is because it's going to mimic the fat in your, or the lipids in your skin better. So it's going to smooth it out better. I then use a face oil. I'll use a rose hip usually with added antioxidants because it just extends the shelf life. And then a sunscreen. And that's it. And then at night, instead of doing that vitamin C, I use a retinol. That's it. I'm a 4 to 5 step person. I don't believe in 12 steps. That's a lot. It's anxiety inducing.
I do have one more question. So on your Instagram stories, I love how you're incorporating skincare into your partner's routine. So what are some things that we can do as ladies to influence our guys to take better care of their skin?
Oh my God, I wondered. There was like this one video that I took of my boyfriend who was trying to put on a sheet mask for like a solid 20 minutes. And I just watched him struggle because it was very, very funny. So the first thing I would say is put your products out for them to see, right? I found that like I got a lot of questions and figure out what they're willing to do, right? So like sunscreen is still going to be a challenge with me and, you know, my boyfriend. So if anything, I just buy him a cream that has SPF in it. But the edible beauty was actually one of the easiest ones for him to do because he's used to taking protein powders. So I basically like reverse engineered that. And now he's, you know, this is a formulation that we're working on. So he's like trying to buy it from me. And I'm like, babe, it's not out yet. Like you can't buy it. But now I see him like researching on the internet. So I think you really need to find like what they're interested in. And multitasking products are usually the best. A way to get them to care about their skin, it's like, well, you have to get them to either care about their health or their beauty. So either go for the vanity or the safety. Those are like the two emotions you can play off of.
Love that. And one, I know you're need to get off the webinar right now, but one last thing. Can you tell us a little bit about Dieux and when you're planning to launch?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Supply chains are so fun right now. But we just finished our first clinical. We're going into our second clinicals for our topicals. We're going to be launching some fun merch stuff in June. Basically, we want to replace a skincare product that you probably use a lot, but make it more of an accessory rather than something that you buy with product in it. So that was cryptic, but you'll see. It's going to be, I'm really excited. That's going to be in June. We're hoping to kind of reinvent a category. And then we're going to be launching our edible product, Communion. It's edible beauty. It's an edible serum that you put in water. We're going to try and launch that in August. And then our topical products are hopefully going to be coming out in the fall. But we are coming out with another product that's going to be for your hands, which I'm really excited about. We're just trying to get it as low of a cost as possible so that we can then pass on those savings to consumers. And right now the market's a bit all over the place. So we're trying to wait for that to stabilize a bit.
Dope. So you will definitely let us know when that happens, right? And we'll make sure to share that with our network.
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome. Any last words, Lulu?
Super excited to have you on our webinar, Charlotte. Like always, a pleasure. And thank you so much. And then
thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks so much, Charlotte. For everybody that joined, thank you so much.
Thanks, DJO2. Bye.
We'll be having DJ O play the music for the next 20 minutes. So if you got to go, you got to go. But if not, you can hang around it and listen to DJ O spin. Take it away, bro.
You wonder what you'll find with the sunlight falling down. You got to find a sound with that starlight in your eyes. You want to find surprise with the neon in your blood. You move to find your love tonight. Yeah, tonight. You heard me yelling, oh yeah, tonight. Tonight. One thing, clear some space out so we can space out. Clear some space out so we can space out. Clear some space out so we can space out. Clear some space out so we can space out.